Okay, welcome aboard, everybody. My name is Doobyis. This is a show that I call Fly in Formation, where I've been talking to artists across the country, hip hop artists specifically across Canada. And, I'm just trying to find out more about each individual artist and their scenes that they represent, as well as, of course, talking about their new projects, trying to put the spotlight on them and get people paying attention over in their direction. Today joining me is Frost Gamble, Winnipeg based producer. I got us both on screen, and I believe I've got us both unmuted. So yeah, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Peace. Thank you very much for having me on here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Nice, man. I appreciate you coming by. So dude, like I play your music, you and Tone Chop, all the time on After the Smoke is Clear, which is my weekly mix show. And like, I think it's been what, since November last year you guys have been doing a track a week?
Yes, sir. Every 2 weeks since November of last year, we've dropped a new single every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Okay, so is it building towards a project? Will eventually these singles all be wrapped up together and tied off into a project, or what's the game
It's
plan?
kind of it's kind of the opposite. It's kind of the opposite of that. But before I answer that, let me first say thank you for playing our records. Thank you
Hey,
for that support. DJs are the absolute backbone of our culture. And I'm sure you noticed, with this 50 years of hip hop that we just went through, DJs weren't respected properly. DJs weren't supported properly. There's too much emphasis on rap.
yeah, I heard
That
a lot
is
of
that.
great mixes from the DJs for the 50th celebration, but yeah, you're right. A lot of the love goes towards the MCs these days, for sure.
Yeah, and that was a bit frustrating. So I'm really, I really, Chop and I really make an effort to be about the culture, not just lip service.
Hell
So
yeah.
I want to take a minute to really acknowledge that if it wasn't for the support of DJs, we'd have nothing, absolutely nothing. So I really appreciate that. Number one,
Thank you.
and number two, we're not building up towards an album. We're actually like moving away from that. So like the young kids will, if they hear this comment, they'll go, duh, because the kids are just doing singles. They don't even mess with albums.
Yeah.
But for me and Chop, it's such a labor of love to craft an album. But we dropped a project in 2021 called 1-2. And for me, that was like the pinnacle of my evolution as a producer. And I just felt like that album was, pardon me for saying it, but it's hip hop. Okay. That shit was flawless. Like I felt that shit was bananas.
Yeah.
And
I played the
you
hell out of
know,
that album, man. I agree
you
with you.
did.
That
You
was a great
did.
album. Yeah.
Thank you. Not everyone paid attention. In fact, a lot of folks paid no attention. And so, I've had different stages in my career. I had a little 50-50 deal for a while where I had some label support. I've done it, by myself for a period of time. And with each passing year, I've become, to be honest, less confident in my ability to market and promote an album. And that's not even the part of it I love anyway. Like that's
Yeah.
the necessary part because I want people to listen. So we've switched it up. We're dropping a new single every 2 weeks. And here's what happens. We send it out to all the DJs that support us. You get those emails.
Hell yeah.
And the DJs are, thankfully, the DJs run with those releases. And so every weekend, whether you're listening to a mix show in Canada or the UK or Germany or wherever you're at, there's a good chance you're going to hear one of our joints. Now, we're not killing it on streaming, we're not killing it on sales, but we get terrific support from the mix show DJs. And so if we drop a new single every 2 weeks, we get that support all the time. And then we can take screenshots from people's shows, posts to say thank you.
Yeah.
It's symbiotic. We support their content, they support ours, and we have something.
That's
You know
exactly
what
it. The
that's
cosigns go both ways, right?
Yes,
I
yes.
appreciate you sending music over as much as you appreciate me playing it, likely. It helps out when artists are actually reciprocating and sending the DJs music, because there's a lot of artists, like you said, who are new school enough that that's not even something that's on their radar to send out to DJs or whatever. They're dropping a single every week or every couple weeks and not even thinking about anything beyond kind of the streaming and their own social media grind or whatever. Um, So you mentioned that you used to have a 50-50 deal. Would somebody else kind of handle some of that promotional side of things for you at that point then?
Yes, yeah, the good old days.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a publicist, right? A professional publicist who, he really knew his stuff and he had relationships and he could get the coverage, he could get the placements, and man, that was lovely.
How long has it been that you've been back on the independent grind then?
Well, about 3, 4 years, three,
Okay.
4 years. So 2016, 2017, 2018, I had that deal. And then by 2019, things started falling apart there. We've been doing it fully independently since.
Nice. So, like for all this recording you guys have been doing, like for 1, 2, and then this string of singles since then, um, was some of this stuff like recorded during the pandemic? A lot of the artists I talked to were like, I found myself with all this time, so I got back in the booth. Um,
Yeah.
did
I
that
mean,
line up for you guys?
for me personally, the pandemic was, I hate to say this, I did lose people, and so I don't mean to be insensitive when I say this, but it was a bit of a blessing for me. I really flourished
Yeah.
uh, during the pandemic, having that extra time. Like, I got organized and went back and did things that I never thought I'd have time to do. And it made a real difference for me in terms of music creation. That hasn't changed much. Like Tone and I have, Chop and I have this routine where I share every single beat I make with him. So right now he has a folder with, I don't know, 800 beats in it. And he can just dip in and, yo, this speaks to me today. I'm going to write to this, right? And that works. And so we're just always casually knocking out songs. And in the past, what we do is we get, maybe 20, 30 songs recorded, and try to pick out 12 that were really fit together that we can put out as an album. That's the way we approached it in the past.
Right.
Now we're just, drop a single, drop a single, drop a single. And if something bricks, cool, no pressure. Something new is coming in about 8 days. So
Yeah, I love the constant workflow from artists. I think, like you say, it is a lot less. I don't know, a lot less pressure because yeah, there's something new coming up no matter what. And also, man, like I'm from the school where like I want to hear outtakes. I want to hear like sometimes people will shit on kind of mainstream artists if they drop a bad album, and I'm always like, no, I'd rather hear that guy rap than not rap. Like I'd rather that album exist than just have a year when that artist didn't put out an album. So for me, I'm here for it. I'm here to hear weekly output from people, whatever, bi-weekly, whatever it's going to be. The more output the better. And I think that's kind of the way that the culture has shifted, definitely. But I still ask artists whether they like projects or not, because I feel like a lot of artists do have this feeling like, designing a cohesive project all together is a crowning achievement, kind of is a bar to jump over or whatever. So
and I miss it at times too. Like I really enjoy it, and I still listen to albums. Like I feel out of place a lot of times in 2023. I don't like playlists. I don't
yeah.
want somebody to pick a bunch of songs I'm supposed to listen to. If you tell me to check out an artist, I'm going to listen to the album.
Totally.
Right. And
Yeah. That's exactly me too. That's one of the reasons I started doing After the Smoke is Clear, is because the playlists, I mean, Spotify can point you towards the new music that's from the artists you like. If you're following the right artists or whatever, it'll put it up. But even then, it's not really like curated in any way that makes any sense. So like, yeah, I try to pick through the new releases every week and then play an hour's worth of music that actually kind of makes sense playing into the next song, so that you don't end up getting like a song about the trap followed by some R&B track or whatever, where they just don't really vibe from one to the next. But yeah, man, I
right.
totally feel you, and I appreciate artists who are doing both those things, because I do like to hear a project every now and again, but the constant output, I think, is the wave. And especially now that so many people have home studios, right? Like it looks like you're sitting in a studio, a home studio, and I'm gonna guess that Tone Chop is recording his stuff at home just because you guys are so prolific. It lends
Absolutely.
itself to that type of workflow, right?
It sure does. It sure does.
Yeah. So like you said, he has a folder with 800 beats. Are you making beats every day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working every day, right? I don't make a new beat every day. Sometimes I'm working on a mix, sometimes I'm working on finishing a song, sometimes it's content creation,
Yeah,
sometimes it's paperwork, right? But every day, there's no days off. You have to do something every day.
for sure.
Artists, at my low level, artists get forgotten about very, very quickly. And
Definitely.
one of the interesting things is it's my consistency that I feel like has opened doors for me, because I'll meet people or have conversation with people and I go, "Oh, Frost Gamble, I've heard of you." You know, great. What's your favorite song? Oh, I don't know. I don't know any of your music. I've never listened to any of your music. I just know your name. And that used to really bug me, right? But now I'm like, okay, that's my currency. Like that's my currency, and so I try to leverage that to my benefit.
Yeah, having a recognizable name is better than having no name recognition at all. That's for sure. Whether people can name the song or not, they've probably heard the music, so it's building up streams and it just building the brand or whatever, right? As much as people hate to refer to ourselves as brands, that's the name of the game with the social media grind at this point. Is getting the name out there in people's ears more often. Can I ask you about the name? Why'd you choose Frost Gamble?
So my last name is Foster, and it was misspelled in the first day of junior high school. It was spelled Froster, and so Frosty became a nickname, and I liked it, and it just kind of stuck, and people have always called me, and it became Frost as an adult. So of course, you'd be familiar with Kid Frost, right? And
Yeah.
I needed to, sort of differentiate myself. And for a period of time, I played poker professionally,
Okay.
and so that's where the gamble came from.
Makes sense.
Um,
So you're in Winnipeg now. Have you? I got the impression from some Instagram stories you were talking about when you lived in New York with Tone Chop or around
yeah,
in the same area, anyways. How long
yeah,
have
I
you
was
been in Winnipeg, or how did that come about?
been in Winnipeg since about 2007. So I was born and raised in upstate New York, Broome County, near Binghamton, New York, where Chop is from, and lived there until I was mid late 20s, born and raised there. And so that's where I learned hip hop, and I have a very close affection with hip hop that comes there for that reason.
Pretty good
I
place to
mean,
learn hip hop from, I think, New York.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was wonderful because I came up in the time where you hear about the old tapes, like the tapes would come up to us. Now it'd be 2 or 3 months later, you know what I mean? But I remember very clearly, having my friend Michael, who brought me a tape that had UTFO on it, Roxanne, and just having my mind blown.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a wonderful time for sure.
It
But
must have
I
been a quicker transmission from there to upstate New York than it was like a lot of the guys I talked to like in Edmonton were talking about like somebody's brother would have to go to New York and bring back records for people once a summer or whatever, like yeah, so
right.
it would have been nice, I'm sure, being a little bit closer to the source down there actually in the state.
Yeah, it was a great time, and the thing was, the reason I left, like Binghamton's very, and I guess I'll speak more to that time, was a very desolate place, man. There wasn't much in the way of opportunity. There was a lot of, the way I describe it is, I had all of the problems of New York City, but none of the opportunities. And so there was a lot of trouble to be had. And I found some of it, and I wasn't really built for that. So I needed to make some changes, and I went to school and, tried to change my life up. And ended up moving from New York to Minneapolis to Lexington, Kentucky to Kansas City, Missouri. So I got a lot of exposure to like the Midwestern, styles of hip hop during that time, and the aesthetic and lifestyle around it. And I was spending some time in LA and Phoenix and traveling a lot. And I met the woman who would become my wife at a poker tournament, returning to the gamble theme. And she was from Winnipeg. And so, one thing led to another, and I ended up in Winnipeg. And man, I've never regretted it. I mean, I love living here. I love Canada in general, and Winnipeg specifically. And I've had a great life here.
That's really interesting that you don't have any animosity to moving to, like, Winnipeg's not New York. I mean, there is a hip hop scene in Winnipeg for sure. But yeah, can you compare the Winnipeg scene to what it used to be like living in New York State?
Yeah, I mean, when I arrived in Winnipeg, it was, this is basically at the height of like Winnipeg's most, and they were really killing shit. And I was like, I was happy. I was like, oh, there's a scene here. Like there's some infrastructure here. There's some stuff happening here. So I was sort of impressed by what was going on in Winnipeg, when I arrived and was able to meet and connect with different artists. And so there was never any disappointment to me. And frankly, like what I was, from hearing from groups like, Winnipeg's Most and Bonafide and others, the lyrics was more in line with what I liked to listen to necessarily than some of the stuff I'd been hearing in Kentucky or Kansas City, right? Which was more 808 driven or more, less
Right.
lyrical. So yeah, I felt pretty comfortable here right from jump, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is kind of that East Coast New York boom bap aesthetic to a lot of that music, especially back 20 years ago or whatever, that was coming out of a lot of these Canadian cities. I think even to this day though, there is a lot of that same kind of like traditionalism across the map that you do still get a lot of artists such as yourself, who do keep it really locked into the boom bap sound. And it, I wanted to ask, like, do you feel like your sound is still evolving, or are you nailed down to where you want to be at this point?
That's a great question. My skills are still evolving. My sound, I don't know. Like, I actually struggle with describing my sound, and boom bap absolutely is the word that's most often used, but I don't even necessarily feel like that's a good descriptor.
You can
Um,
definitely get more descriptive. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so I mean, it's hard for me to say, but I'm still growing. I'm still learning new skills. I mean, when I think about my evolution as a producer, I think more about the mixing, the mastering, the engineering, the studio skills side of it. So, even as a kid, I was pretty good at finding samples and finding drums and and being decent at that. But what I found more challenging is the mix side of it. When I was starting out, engineer was a different job
Right.
than beat maker or producer. And that changed in the 2000s, and I felt like I was playing catch up for a little while, but now I'm in a place where I very confident in my mixing skills.
Yeah,
But of
man.
course, I'll listen to older releases, like we talked about the growth, and I'll listen to older releases, and I'm going, but I'm grateful that a real fan can benefit from that, and they see the growth, and they feel like they're invested in that growth with you,
That's
right?
exactly it.
So,
Yeah.
so it's
That's what I was talking
definitely
about.
different.
Like, I want to hear it. I want to see the growth. I want to, yeah, I'm happy to watch artists grow. There's a lot of people who, I know some of my friends give me sideways glances when I play them on ATSIC, and I'm kind of like, it's not because I think that they're like great right now. It's because I see them grinding and I know they're building, right? Like, it's just kind of to show some love to people who I think are doing it in an authentic way, right?
Well, to give you some props, that's because you're a real DJ, a real artist. You listen with your ears. There's some folks out there, and I don't want to use the word DJ. They're more like curators who
Sure.
listen with their eyes. They look at analytics and they, oh, people, that's popular. I'll play that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Or even this guy was gonna pay me. Sure, I'll play your music.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
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 That's the real cheat code there for sure. But yeah,
Fair.
it's there's a lot of trickery in the industry, and there's a lot of gatekeepers who are gatekeeping based on criteria that I don't even pay attention to. So yeah, definitely, I agree with you wholeheartedly. What type of equipment are you using for making beats? Like, are you working, like, do you finger drum, or are you working on a computer? What's the process like? Because you're very sample based, right? That's another way I could
Yes.
describe your production style.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sample based is very accurate, and I love the amount of creativity that sampling allows me. Right. In terms of equipment, I have a mix of stuff. The Isla Instruments S2400, which is an SP1200 derivative, is my main item of choice. I've got a Roland XP keyboard. I've got, SP12, SL1200 turntable, vinyl records. I've got an old Yamaha drum machine, effects processors. I like having analog gear around for inspiration, but there's definitely times where I'll just chop up a sample inside Reaper, inside the DAW, and just start adding drums and do it all in the computer. So all of it's okay to me.
Bit of both, yeah. I'm not judging. I just gotta ask one way or the other what you prefer. I think there's good music being made with all types of equipment, and there has been for a real long time. I think at this point, it seems to me, anyways, kind of as the rapper half of the equation, that I'm not sure if the equipment is terribly important. It seems like people make fire off of whatever they have to work with.
Producers will get into a habit where they talk about the sound of a machine, right? We talk about the sound of the SP1200, and that's true. It's an amazing machine with an amazing sound, but I strongly believe that's an oversimplification. Like, I grew up listening to, Marley Marl, who used the SP1200, and Manny Fresh used the SP1200, but their joints sounded nothing alike. And that's number one. And number two, like, it's not going from the machine directly to your listeners' ears. Today you have, with plugins, like, you have every choice in the world in terms of shaping and crafting your sound. So for me, like, it's more about the inspiration of it, but not getting too hung up on the sound of a particular device.
Definitely. So I know that you mentioned on an Instagram a while ago that you were saving a story about how when you moved to Tone Chop's neighborhood, he kind of helped to show you the ropes. Can you talk a little bit about that time era and
yeah, for sure.
Working
so
with
Chop,
yeah.
It's a great story to me because it really speaks to why Chop and I have such great chemistry and such loyalty to each other. So just to fast forward a bit, when we got the deal in 2016 and we had our first album rollout, the publicist I spoke of made a big deal about our background as rivals in the upstate, New York scene, which was true, but it for like 5 minutes, right? It wasn't like we became friends and collaborators and have a much longer history as friends and collaborators, as brothers, than we did as rivals. But in all these years, I've never told the story of how I met Tone Chop. So I'll share that with you today. I was about 15, 16 years old, working in a drugstore in a neighborhood in Binghamton. And at the time, I had just gotten my first song on the radio. There was a local mix show that was on the weekends. It's always the local weekend mix shows with me.
Hell yeah.
30 years running.
That's the culture.
And,
yeah,
exactly. Real shit.
Yeah.
And so my song was getting played, and I stood out a little bit because, unlike a lot of other artists who were, say, rapping over 45 king break beats or instrumentals from other people's albums, I went to the music store, I rented a bunch of equipment, I created my own beat. And so I stood out a little bit in that way, even if I wasn't the dopest MC, which I wasn't. But Chop was in a crew called Binghamton's Most Wanted, and his DJ, his name DJ Blitz, shout out to Blitz, reached out to me and was like, yo, you're making your own beats? That's crazy. We should work together. I was like, bet, that sounds amazing. Let's do that. So the next weekend, I'm at this drugstore I'm working at in kind of a rough neighborhood in Binghamton, and in comes Chop with a couple other folks to confront me. and Chop comes up like, yo, I heard you're trying to steal my DJ. We can handle this right now, right? And that's like part of why I love Chop, because it's like he's so honest. Like, there's no filter, there's no bullshit. Like, he means what he says what he means. And so I got on my bike, was back. I'm like, yo, I don't want no smoke. Like, dude reached out to me. He said I was dope. We wanted to collaborate. And I was like, not for nothing. I know you. I know your music. You're dope. And so, I was able to turn the conversation around pretty quickly. And we started building from there. And that's, that was really the beginning of us working together for 30 years. But that could have gone a different direction. It's a good thing I didn't want the smoke.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of guys, let their testosterone get to their head, and that could have been a bridge burned and,
Yeah.
a tooth knocked out for one of you or the other or whatever. And you both go your separate ways and just have beef from
A
then
little bit
on,
of
man. So kudos for taking the high road and,
Yeah, well, so just to add on to that, like it even goes a bit deeper because what you were talking about, when I got estranged from my family a little later on, and I was homeless for a stretch. I, I was slept outdoors for a couple weeks, and I was like sleeping in apartment buildings, hallways, and just I was in a terrible place in life. And but I had, I was new to the city because I had grown up in a country area in upstate New York, and so Chop recognized that, and he basically, like, he's 6 months younger than me, but he basically big brothered me at this moment and was like, yo, I got to show you some stuff. When you're walking through this neighborhood, if somebody comes up to you and says, you need something, you say, I'm straight, and you keep it moving. You don't ask no questions, you keep it moving. And that was really good and important advice. I actually gave my son that advice recently. Now that he's starting to go out and go to events in the city here.
yeah.
And like he and other stuff too, man. Like, I don't want to go into the details, but he taught me how to survive at a time where survival wasn't guaranteed. So he really helped me out at that time, and there's been times in his life where I really helped him out. And so that's why we have the chemistry that we have.
Nice. I didn't actually realize that you were an MC to begin with. Like, how long? When was the last track you rapped on? Let's put it that way.
I rapped on a track a couple of months ago.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I love rap. I love all of it. I'm just honest with myself. Like, I don't have the voice and the flow and all that, but every once in a while I get the urge. And I work with Anthony Cannon, and Cannon said the same thing. He said, yo, I didn't know you used to rap. He's like, maybe we should do something. And I was like, oh man, now you put the thought in my head. Now I got to do it.
Yeah.
So I did. I sent him a verse on a track that Chop produced. So we'll see if anything happens there.
Wait, and Tone Chop produces as well? You guys are both multifaceted like that. Okay. I don't know.
That's the other thing. Like, Chop is nice on the beats. Like, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves, I guess, because he works with me. But yeah, he's nice on the beats.
Early into discovering your guys' music, I had a tough time keeping the two of you apart and like knowing who was producing and who was on the mic, because like Tone Chop sounds like a guy who might chop samples, right? So like, just my brain was telling me that he must be the producer and Frost Gamble must be the rapper. But no, I have since learned that it's at least most of the time the opposite of that. But so that's who you're normally working with. Sounds like you guys have known each other a long time. But you just mentioned Anthony Cannon too, who is kind of upcoming. He's Winnipeg based, right?
No, he's from Ithaca, New York. He's from upstate New York as well.
Oh, damn! I didn't even know. Okay. So how did the two of you link up?
Chop connected us. So when I had the 50-50 deal, I tried to put a crew together formally, and this was, in retrospect, this was unnecessary, but like, again, I have a really strong sense of loyalty, and I thought there was a chance I was going to blow up.
Right.
And I thought I wanted to give the people around me that same opportunity, the same way 50 did with G Unit, the same way, Cam and Jim did with the Dips and all that, right? Yeah. That was the idea. And so I put together this crew called Nostalgia Click, and I had some folks in the crew that I, loved and believed in very much. But it didn't work out, right? It didn't work out. And so Chop saw this, and he knows that, like, of course I can make more beats than he can ever rap to. And he knew that, I could only work well with a certain kind of person. He's like, yo, I think you should check out Cannon. He's dope, man. This kid's got something. And that's how it started. I checked out his music, got familiar with him. We connected, maybe did one track together, and then quickly it ballooned into the albums.
Right.
Cannon's amazing, man. He's got a maturity and a perspective well beyond his years, and that's why it's easy for me to work with him.
Word. So the album's still on the way, right? It hasn't released yet. There's just the one track from it so far, or something, I think.
Cautionary Tales drops October 20th on New Dawn Records. We did drop an album called Freedom of a Slave in 2021, which is a crazy album too.
Oh, okay. I'll have to go back and check that one. I missed that. And then there was also a remix project that I saw you drop recently.
Yes.
And I played one track off of that. It was like not a real hip hop based. I mean, like it has the hip hop feel because you're doing the remixes on it, but nobody was rapping on it, I guess. What was the name of the group that those remixes?
So that's fresh. So that's Fresh IE. That's Fresh IE.
Fresh IE, right? Okay.
And Fresh IE is somebody who's really, really important to me because, like you, he's somebody who listens to my music with his ears. He Fresh is a two-time Grammy-nominated artist, two-time Juno-nominated artist. He's a gospel artist, so people unfortunately don't sometimes check for him the way they should, in my opinion. But he like, you know, I got a Juno nomination working with and because of Fresh IE. So when I talked about how much my skills have progressed over the years, like this is my third full remix album with Fresh. And so when he said, you want to do another one? I was like, yes, because let me do this to show you how much everything you've already done for me. And that album is all like rare vintage gospel samples, you know, chopped up and flipped over, you know, his gospel album. I think it sounds crazy.
Yeah, it was you used like a Wu-Tang sample that, you know, I'm not a big enough sample head to know the actual source of or whatever, but the one track had the Wu-Tang sample flip on it, and I was like, all right, this is hip hop enough that I'm playing it, whether he's singing about Christ or not. But yeah, so I appreciate you giving it a little bit of a knock to it or whatever. Are the original versions of those also released, or is he?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So The Wind and the Waves was, you know, the original album, and so the title of mine is The Wind and the Waves remixed.
Dope. And what else did I want to ask? Do you and Tone ever get a chance to do shows? You actually ever get to get up and perform together?
We haven't. No,
like
no,
ever?
we haven't. Yeah, for sure, but not not in recent years. So I am performing, a little shameless plug. I'm performing in Winnipeg, October 26th. We're doing an album release party.
Dope.
I'm performing with both with an artist named Serge Paul, close friend of mine, who is a multi-instrumentalist, producer, vocalist in his own right. And we're going to do something a little different before Cannon comes out. I'm going to stay out there with Cannon for his set as well. Dope. I think I'm going to be performing in New York in November, as well as we're doing album releases in both of the cities. But no, Chop and I have not performed. Some of that has been for legal reasons, like Chop can't cross the border.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's different things going on there. It's been some health things in the past. So that's been a little bit challenging, but I hope that, perhaps we do in the future.
Nice, man. I was going to ask, like, so during a live show, say, Anthony Cannon's up there rapping, are you on ones and twos? You got a set of turntables that you're actively working on, or do you
DJ,
hype, man?
Like,
what do you do? Like, what part do you play in the live show?
I'm going to be in the back with the beat machine, banging out the beats. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Just supporting. I'm not going to be the lively guy at the front of the stage. That's not really my nature.
Do you have a mic nearby? Because one of my favorite things, at least as a performer, I always used to love it when my DJ would have a mic so that I could at least banter with my DJ on stage, or, if he knows the bars, he could hype it or whatever. Do you mic up on stage if you're in the background?
I wasn't planning on it, but after Serge and Cannon see this video, they might make me reconsider.
I hope they do. Especially, like you say, you can rap. So, I mean, certainly you got to be able to jump on a mic.
I said I enjoy it.
Yeah, fair. Do you dabble in any of the other elements of hip hop? Do you graffiti or breakdance?
Yeah, I mean, I came up as a breakdancer. That was my first exposure to hip hop and to the culture. Although, like, I can't front, like, I was 12 years old. It wasn't culture heavy. I bought one of those K-Tel tapes with the big poster, with the instructions how to do the windmill and whatnot. So, but that's where it started. And yeah, I've tried graffiti. I used to run around with a marker in my pocket and we tag up every place we go, but
Nice.
I wasn't particularly skilled at that. Chop is actually a dope, graph artist, and do hats and different pieces for me sometimes.
Well, you're skilled at the one element. I don't think anybody expects everybody to be, skilled at all the elements, but it's dope when people actually just even try and can mess around and
Oh, yeah.
do some of it, right?
And it's like, and I run around the city. I take pictures of graffiti. I email it, send it to friends. They send me pictures, like,
yeah.
Beatbox and break. Like, I'm really here for hip hop. I rapping is just, especially in 2023.
What's the graffiti scene in Winnipeg like out there? Is there a lot of graffiti on the walls and stuff,
Yes.
or are we mostly talking trains? Like out here in Lethbridge,
Well,
I moved here and was amazed because compared to Edmonton, I lived in Edmonton for 10 years and then moved to Lethbridge, and there's nothing on any of the walls down here. You can walk down back alleys, there's nothing on the brick walls, nothing up anywhere, nothing under the bridges, nothing. And it's not even like they've graded out. Like it's just not there. That element just doesn't live here. But
tons of it. We go in the back alleys in the Exchange District of downtown, gorgeous full wall burners from alley to alley, end to end. We've got some terrific artists out here for sure, man.
Dope. Here's something I ask everybody. What's the best way for somebody to support music that they like in 2023?
Spend money. Spend money. Buy shit.
Yeah.
Buy shit. And if fuck streaming, like, I don't care how many times you streamed anybody. Like, all right, I'm going to go on a rant. You asked for this.
Do it.
One of my least favorite things in the world is how people will jump on social media and argue about their top 5 and compare one era to another and argue, and try to show I like this rare, artist. Like, no, he's underrated, everybody's supported. That's the fucking problem, because you're standing in a barber shop talking about how dope somebody is. Where's the t-shirt? Where's the vinyl? Where's the CD? Where's the concert tickets?
Yeah.
People think their opinions are more important than the artists themselves. Spend money.
Hell yeah. Well, and that's why I ask this question, man. Like, a lot of the time artists look at me like, well, what do you want me to say? Everybody knows the answer to this. It's go buy my shit, come out to my shows, But I make everybody say it because I think there are a lot of fans and a lot of people who listen to a lot of music who just don't even register that, like, oh yeah, music isn't actually free. Like, I feel like a lot of people think it's free in 2023 because you can get it free on streaming or whatever, and so it is free. But ultimately, the independent artists need to pay their bills. So if nobody's paying them for what they're doing, they're going to stop doing it and they're going to go get a fucking job, or they're going to work more hours at the job they already have, in all likelihood, right?
And it's that direct to fan relationship. And I'm saying this on both sides, because, like, I recently bought a CD from King Crooked. He just put out his own product himself. And with the exchange rate and shipping, it's like $60 to get that CD up here. But I'm glad to do that, because King Crooked is someone who gave me opportunities in the past. He's someone who has a super high bar for elite lyricism. He reps the culture. So take my money, please, because I want you to keep doing it.
I agree, man. I still buy when legends like that drop. The legends who I like to support, I still definitely support, even though I know they don't need that $10. I feel like, there's probably artists who are kind of these legacy artists who might just not drop music if it goes brick. Like when they put it out, if it just flops, that might be the last one we ever get. And I hate that, man. I saw Nas actually recently, and I love what Nas has been doing, just pumping out music. But I saw him talking about how, like, I want the artists my age to be making music. I don't want to hear trends. I want to hear art from these people. And I thought, like, exactly, like, isn't that everybody? Don't we all fucking want that? Like, who are these people who oh, he fell off, he should stop? Like, no, you're never gonna tear your ACL and not be able to rap anymore or whatever. I want the legends to keep doing it. It's not a sport,
I do too, but I'm gonna keep it a buck. Melly Mel broke my heart.
Sure. Sure. And
I agree with what you said, but there's exceptions.
There are exceptions for sure. And there are guys who will put their foot in their mouth and maybe could bow out gracefully or whatever, for sure. But Yeah, for the most part, I'm happy to see people make music. Dude, you know, I see so many youth coming into the hip hop genre, and I used to actually work with youth who would come in and work with me. I was running a program just recording with anybody who would come in. So, so many people want to make beats that I wanted to ask you as a producer who, I mean, you're doing it. Like, you got the beat store up. I feel like if anybody's making a go of being a Canadian producer, you're one of a handful of people who are in the forefront of this hip hop thing. But do you have any tips for people who are trying to do the production thing specifically? Because a lot of the time I would draw a blank because, I mean, I've messed around with an MPC 1000, but only long enough to make 3 beats that I was like, well, there are better beat makers out there than me. I'm just going to buy beats from them, you know. But yeah, any tips for youth trying to get into it?
Yeah, and great question. First of all, thanks for giving me that kind of acknowledgement. That feels really good. I'm not sure I deserve it. I mean, I should. There's a lot of Canadian folks that I hold in very high regard above me, but I'm trying. Thank you.
I mean, you're
Um,
one of the ones who's out there doing it consistently, man. There's definitely, like you say, there are a lot of people who have done a lot of good hip hop across the country.
yeah, thank you. I mean,
But you're
I
still
see
out there.
myself as a contributor to the invisible renaissance, right? Peace to
Yeah,
Sunez a lot for that phrase. But I've never, done anything that cracked the mainstream like other, producers have done. But there's still time. I'm still writing my story.
for sure.
My advice to younger producers and to younger artists is sort of independent of technology and creation, and that is to just embrace the life of being an artist, and that means um, every day you're going to have to create, every day you're going to have to share, every day you're going to have to do a bunch of shit you don't want to do so you can create and you can share. And I really don't think you should call it a grind, because grind wears you down, grind destroys, grind reduces. That's not what I'm doing. I'm flourishing, I'm
Yeah,
happy. It's hard work, it's a lot of focus, but I wouldn't change it for a thing. And as a producer, I also want to acknowledge, like, you're right, like everybody's making beats, and a lot of them are dope, man. Like, there are so many dope producers out there. So shout out to all the folks coming up and doing their thing, man. I'm amazed by, like, I'll keep it a buck with you. I hear so many dope beats. I don't be hearing
yeah.
so many dope rappers. Like, I hear a shitload of dope beats though.
I mean, listen to ATSIC. I'd like to think there's still a lot of dope rappers out there too, but I will agree with you. There's a lot. There's no shortage of dope beats. It drives me crazy when an artist comes over to work. Like, I got a studio here, and they want to rhyme off of something they've stolen off YouTube. It's like, dude, like, I can message 50 different producers right now who will sell us a beat. You know, like, these guys know who I am. I know who they are. Why are we fucking stealing random shit from YouTube? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. So, um, that's something though that, like, I know a lot of different producers who are, guys I consider my peers around my age or whatever, and have been doing this for a while, and they make dope beats, but they either don't want to get them out onto something like a BeatStars or well, just to plug it, like, you have a beat store online. I don't think it's BeatStars, but where do you sell beats through?
Airbit. Airbit
Airbit.
is the sub.
Okay, right. And I've seen people talking about how that is the new best one to be using or whatever. It just slipped my mind. But can you talk a little bit about that, about selling beats on a lease basis? Because, like, do you just
Yeah.
sell them to anybody who will buy? Is that the way it goes?
I'm
Because a lot of producers tell me, like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm brand new to the lease side of it, to be honest. So I was selling beats online early, uh like 2007, 2008, up through, like, 2014 or so, when it was still a relatively new thing. And not it was I was on a site called PMP Worldwide, which at that time you could actually submit to label opportunities. So it was amazing. I'll never forget the first time I sold a beat and I did it all over my BlackBerry. Right, I thought, man, I'm killing it. I was so proud of myself.
The
But
money
then,
is finally here.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But then as things progressed, like, what for me, I started out in my early days really just wanting to produce and not have my face on anything and be in the studio and selling those beats. But the problem I was facing is, sure, people buy beats. Then what? Like the vast majority of beats I've sold in my life are on people's hard drives.
Right.
They're not songs on streaming platforms or in stores or anything. And I really wanted to establish a name for myself, in the music marketplace, not just to sell beats to artists who don't put them out.
Right.
And so I stopped. I didn't sell any beats for a number of years. Only if labels reached out, or if somebody that had a relationship reached out, would I sell beats. And those are generally better prices anyway. So it was okay.
So
But yeah, so I've relaunched this new beat store. I sold my first leases recently. It's a new experience for me.
nice, man. I applaud it. I mean, I'm somebody who might go by and grab a lease myself or whatever. I might pop up on a streaming platform with a track on top of one of your beats one of these days. But yeah, man, I think rappers should do that more, and I think it's important to build that community with people you actually know, and with people who are actually not even necessarily like good homies or whatever, but other people who are out there grinding. Well, let's not use that term, I guess, but who are out there pushing themselves forward and are out there promoting. And I think that the cross promotion goes a long ways that way. You start seeing, people from both sides of both artists coming in to support. And I think it goes a long ways, man. So I guess, like, do you work with locals? I thought Anthony Cannon was one, but I guess that was just me being ignorant. But how do you,
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
do you reach out to locals ever, who you think are dope, or have you been working with anybody local?
Yeah, for sure. There's a local crew that I kick it with called Poetry in Motion, and so there's a couple of artists in that group, Dag, Tech Pro, who I've worked with a lot. I have a good relationship with. Fresh IEs from Winnipeg. And I've worked with a long list of Winnipeg-based artists, and it's been great doing that. I always, I have these connections to New York that I maintain. That's where I'm from. That's my family. That's my culture. And so, I'll always maintain that. And Chop's like a brother to me. We're so close, and that's the core of it for
And I
me.
don't think anybody could ever blame you for going back to New York for your core of your hip hop feel. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. But I do like to see it when the bridges are being made and people are working with locals, or even people just across the country or whatever. I feel like should be knocking on your door, because there's a lot
my
of
my lane, my local lane is narrowing, right? It's narrowing, and I don't do trap beats. I don't do drill beats. I don't I'm I don't need you to. I'm not going to turn on auto tune and ask you to sing. All that's cool. That's no disrespect.
yeah.
If you're sincerely, I want to put that across. Like whatever style you make, if you love it and you believe in it, more power to you. I want you to flourish. It's just not for me. And so, my lane's kind of narrow.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Are you open to working with
Oh, for
other
sure.
MCs? Like, that's why you're selling beats, right?
Well, like right now I'm working with Serge Paul. We're doing what I would call like jazz fusion hip hop. I work with a singer from Winnipeg named Stacey James, who I think she's an amazing singer songwriter, multi instrumentalist, and we did some stuff that it may be as close as I'll ever get to working with Erica Badu, right? Like that kind of vibe. So yeah, absolutely, 100% I'm open to it. But like my mind really goes more towards artistry than it does necessarily a rapper, right? If and I fuck with rappers heavy, but we've got to have some kind of chemistry. Like I work with my friends, I work with homies,
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Right on, man.
that's
I mean, I think that that's a good way to be. I think that's a normal way to be. But at the same time, I just wanted to make sure that people who might watch this interview, because there are a lot of boom bap heads out there who like still like to do rappity rap over top of boom bap beats, like those guys are definitely still out there across the country. I think they should be
and let
knocking
me
on your door.
and since you gave me the opportunity, thank you. And since you gave me the opportunity, I'm gonna throw a tidbit out there. Like just my thing is show and prove, right? I'm a hip hopper, so show and prove. Like I got all sorts of instrumentals out there floating around. You just like go to my Bandcamp, do a Google search. Like if you want to show me what you can do, don't DM me, rap over a beat.
Yeah.
Show and prove. It's not this.
Hell
It's
yeah.
this.
Um, so I always ask people, any artists from your local scene who you think people should be up on. Can you name that crew again? I already have forgot the name of the crew you said you've been hanging with.
Poetry in motion.
Poetry in
Uh,
Motion. Do they have music on Spotify and stuff? Like, can I find their stuff?
yeah, I don't. Yeah, but under the individual artist name, so it's a collective. That includes. They got a dope producer named Hayes Beats. There's Dag Tech Pro, Saint Luther. There's a bunch of kids in the crew. My man Cairo just joined, and Cairo, has like knowledge of self and like really deep lyricism, and
Nice.
he just joined the crew. So there's like there's a variety of folks in there who are all putting out music independently, but they have one studio. They're building together. They're throwing shows together. So I
Beautiful.
think they're being really smart, have some momentum.
All right, man. Well,
Yes.
I don't need to keep you any longer than this. I appreciate you coming by, spending your time to chat. Anything else you need to plug or upcoming projects, stuff people should be looking out for, whatever?
Anthony Cannon, Cautionary Tales drops October 20th. Make sure you check for it. Tone Shop and Frost Gamble, new heat every 2 weeks. And Dibs, thank you so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate the opportunity, the platform, and especially your continued support on the spins. It means a lot.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate you coming by, and I will continue playing it as long as you guys keep making dope music. Appreciate you. Peace, man.
Peace.
All right. So that was that. Thanks for everybody for hanging out and chat. And yeah, I had fun talking to Frost Gamble. Make sure you check out Tone Chop and Frost Gamble's music. You can find that on the streaming platforms, like we said. And yeah, this will be up on the end of a upcoming ATSIC, probably episode 26. And keep coming by on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Doobyis is where you can come on Tuesdays and hang out while we do live interviews with various different artists. Coming up, I am talking next week on the 12th to the Mighty Rhino and Mindbender, two Toronto-based artists. After them, I am talking on the 19th to Old School and Str8 Gutta, Edmonton-based artists who have a really dope album with all sorts of crazy West Coast features, which I've been leaking some exclusives on ATSIC from. So that's September 19th. September 26th, I am talking, I believe, to CXtotheworld, who is a Edmonton-based artist, kind of the new guard taking over the Edmonton scene. He's dope, lyrical, been making a lot of hip-hop. I've been playing on ATSIC. And on October 3rd, I should be talking to Kryple. We finally set a date to make up for the one that I had to cancel last year because I was stuck on a work site. But that's the only one I've ever had to cancel. These things are pretty consistent. So come by on Tuesdays and hang out while we do them. And make sure you check out After the Smoke is Clear. I play independent hip-hop every week from across the country. And it's always new release stuff. It's always, stuff I've never played before. So tap in and enjoy those mixes. We got a new one coming up on Thursday.